About a month and a half ago, Team Cherry released the long-awaited sequel to the breakout hit Hollow Knight in Silksong. The original announcement was over 6 years ago at this point, and after waiting for several years with little updates, fans of the original game and Kickstarters for Silksong would start to question what is going on with the release of their next title. After 5 years since the initial announcement, Team Cherry had to understandably quell the rumors of a cancellation, stating that they were hard at work on their new release. Then almost a year after that, leaks started to finally emerge that Silksong was actually nearing release, for real this time. During the Switch 2's Nintendo Direct, those whose streams didn't lag during the final minutes would see a brief glimpse of the game being shown off. What could this mean? Is it finally going to happen? After all this time? And yeah, an official release was announced for September 4th, and when it did release, digital storefronts like Steam and the Nintendo eShop couldn't handle the influx of users seeking to purchase the title, causing them to crash due to Team Cherry's decision to not allow pre-order/downloads, causing a massive mad dash not unlike the Black Fridays of yesteryear. And it was only at this point where I personally became invested. Sure, I had heard about Hollow Knight in passing ever since release as a well-renowned indie game that received heavy praise nearly any time I saw its name, but I maybe tried it out for a grand total of 30 minutes before putting it down. I couldn't give you a specific reason as to why I dropped it. This was over 5 years ago minimum at this point. If I had to explain somehow, it was very likely I simply just didn't like the genre the series was in. Metroidvanias have never been my cup of tea, and for the longest time I would go so far to say that I actively disliked them for reasons I'll delve into later. However, since then I played through Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night, and Metroid Dread. Those two games have done enough to at least sway me to the point of not necessarily being an outright fan of the genre and seeking for more, but to at least give a game in that genre a chance if I find it intriguing, which I found Silksong to be incredibly so after watching the trailer for it on Steam. The art style was gorgeous. It seemed to be filled with a ton of areas to explore, interesting characters, and electrifying and fast-paced fights. And only for $20 I figured why not? Let me get it, give it a try, and hey, I can turn myself into a guinea pig and see what it's like for someone who has functionally zero experience with the original. I also wanted to see if it really was as hard as people were saying, or if it was another case of internet hyperbole, to see if prior knowledge of the world/characters was necessary to enjoy the story. If you have yet to play this and you know you already want to, here's your warning. I'm going to spoil everything about Silksong that I experienced from start to finish. So if you're the type that likes to experience things fresh, just go play it for yourself already, and come back afterwards to see if we actually agree or disagree about the quality of the experience. Alright, without further ado, let's begin a plot summary, shall we? Everything kicks off with the main character Hornet having been captured by a legion of strange bugs clad in veils and being carted off to the kingdom of Farloom for unknown reasons as of this time. The cart she is in is enchanted with some sort of power that is limiting her ability to use her silk. A strange butterfly lands on the cart and disengages the neutralizer, allowing Hornet to break free of her confinement. While in the process of doing so, she collapses the bridge that the bugs were lugging her across, thus falling deep down into the recesses of Farloom. After escaping the Moss Grotto, you encounter an old chapel maid that explains that the bugs that kidnapped Hornet intended on taking her back to a place called the Citadel that resides atop the kingdom of Farloom, where the being that they venerate is also housed. The citizens of Farloom believe the Citadel to be a holy land where they can be free of the dangerous ways of the lower regions and risk their lives on pilgrimages to ascend to the top. Hornet decides that she too will rise to the summit to find out the true meaning of her kidnapping. And to give a little payback to boot, you'll soon learn that not only is the pathway riddled with the natural wildlife that is constantly attacking you, but that also the other pilgrims are losing their minds among the climb and becoming violent. While you're still in Farloom, you come across Lace. While she is seemingly conducting the creature that freed you towards the beginning, she makes her declaration to kill Hornet here and now and to prevent her from reaching the Citadel. But after swiftly defeating her, she takes off without another word said. Upon the path upwards, you run into a settlement called Bellheart, where the pilgrims have all been snatched up by Silk and are bound in it in a pseudo-zombified state. Behind it all is a weaver named Widow, who by the observations of Hornet does not appear to be the one in total control of the Silk strewn about, but still demands answers to the phenomenon that is going on. Widow doesn't respond directly, but rather mentions that the Destined One, who is born of Worm and Weaver, has arrived back to the homeland and she will gift-wrap them for her mother. After cutting down the Silk that Widow was maintaining and freeing the residents of Bellheart from their grasp, Hornet continues on her ascent. And it's only once she finally reaches the Citadel where everything starts to click. The Citadel is no holy land at all. Everything here is just as, if not more, dangerous, and it only serves as another reminder to the pilgrims who do make their way here that the kingdom has fallen. After searching around a bit, Hornet comes across 3 statues that seek to listen to the threefold song, the melodies for which are hidden throughout the Citadel for Hornet to track down. After doing so, Hornet returns and plays the melodies for the gatekeepers, opening the elevator to rise even further beyond, where she once again runs into Lace lying down in a field of flowers, and on sight, Lace starts to attack Hornet. After defeating her again, she reveals that she is a being made entirely of silk and believes her entire reason for existence was to guide Hornet to the Divine One above, as that is what the Divine One wanted after all. After climbing above and laying the smackdown on the Grandmother Silk, Hornet binds her powers and proceeds to become the Weaver Queen in her stead, as she becomes a full spider. Although that's not the true ending after all. If you load back in and you have completed the prerequisites, you will see a quest on one of the wishboards titled Silken Soul. The caretaker of a settlement in the Citadel called Songclave asks for Hornet to pay him a visit, where he reveals that there just may be another way to deal with the Grandmother Silk that won't leave Hornet corrupted through the use of a trap that requires some setup. Hornet must track down the souls of the caretaker's family, which includes the likes of the Chapel Maiden from the very beginning of the adventure. After building the trap and delivering everything back to the caretaker, Hornet sets off to defeat the Grandmother Silk one last time, except the trap that was set up by the caretaker ends up opening a void that attempts to swallow the Grandmother Silk, who tries to drag Hornet down with her before Lace dashes in and knocks Hornet free. After waking up, she seeks out the ones who helped set up the trap, and we discover that they were actually snails the entire time who seem to be pretty content that the kingdom itself will be consumed by the void that was released and is being made worse by the cries of the Grandmother Silk. Hornet goes to the abyss and finds a shadow of Lace who says that she rebelled against her mother in the final moments to doom the land as one final act of defiance towards the one who created her. With the void acting as a barrier between Hornet and the two, she must return to the shamans to perform a ritual that lets her travel back into her own memories to attain an Everbloom flower. After retrieving it and making her way back to the void, she's able to dive in and make her way to the depths, where she fights against Lace one last time, who's been corrupted by the void itself. After managing to defeat her and remove the corruption, the Grandmother Silk sacrifices herself by offering Hornet the last of her silk so the duo can escape, but on the way out, Hornet and Lace end up stalling in the void as the Everbloom's powers wilt and the surroundings begin to lash out. A figure resembling the main character of the first game appears before them and guides them back to Farloom, where both Lace and Hornet wake up before everything fades to black. Did you get all that? 'Cause I sure didn't. Granted, I am positive a lot of that is because I blatantly ignored everything about the first game, as I wanted to see what the experience would be like for someone coming into the second game directly, and a lot of things were going over my head for the vast majority of the plot. Many things are kept cryptic until the third act, and I think I'm beginning to understand some of it now, like what the Weavers are and what led to the haunting, but a lot of lore behind Farloom itself is spread out through various carvings that can lend a little bit of insight, and some of these I really do mean little. And for a character-driven narrative, no one outside of Hornet or Lace are really that interesting for me in the main story. Now don't take that as this game not having interesting characters. Almost everyone you come across outside of the main plot is fantastic. Take Sherma for example. He's a bug that you come across very early on into Silksong, where he's waiting in front of a gate, singing a song that he believes will open it and let him continue on his pilgrimage. While Hornet is the one that opens it for him, technically his prayers worked and he eventually reaches the Citadel. Later on there's a quest that involves rescuing Sherma as he got stuck while trying to gather medical supplies for Songclave, and you can hear his whimpering as you get closer. Screw you for this, Team Cherry. How dare you make Sherma scared? He doesn't deserve this. And eventually he goes on to become the caretaker for Songclave in the third act after the snail shaman disappears. Now let's start diving into the meat and potatoes of the game itself, starting with... sure, let's go with that. The toolkit you end up amassing throughout the game is pretty extensive. At first you can't do much other than walk back and forth with a single jump and a heal ability, but eventually you end up amassing a sprint/double jump, a tool that jets you forward and attaches to certain rings, a wall climb, and a super jump. Just moving around the world itself becomes incredibly gratifying after being through areas multiple times. It almost becomes a dance from timing everything innately instead of having to constantly open your map to find places. Speaking of which, I was incredibly worried at first when I started Silksong, trying every button on my controller to find the one that would show me the area I'm in, but nothing was popping up. Like, okay, fine, who needs a map? But soon you come across a cartographer named Chakra who... She's a cartographer that will sell you maps and a tool to keep track of new areas that aren't already noted on the maps themselves. And unfortunately, we already arrive at a point of Silksong's design that personally rubs me the wrong way. I don't mind having to scour an entire screen for something hidden if I know that there's something in that area I need to look out for. But when the maps that you're purchasing from Chakra give you no indication that there's a hidden wall, I find it annoying. The entire map of Silksong is massive, so I don't think it would hurt to show a bit more of the actual spot that opens up new areas, such as the connection between Sinner's Road and Biowater. Sometimes the hidden walls come across as obvious, and other times I find myself straight up missing them. There are plenty of secrets to find for the explorative types. Masks to increase your current health pool, oil to increase the sharpness of your needle, tools that can be equipped to archetypes that are also discoverable throughout Farloom. If you are willing to get completely granular with your level of exploration, Silksong will reward you, and it deserves its praise for that. It also helps that the world of Silksong itself is incredibly detailed, with life breathed into every crevice imaginable. With all of the effort placed into the crafting of each area throughout the world, it becomes quite easy to see how it took nearly 7 years for the eventual release. I was completely blown away from the very start. The Moss Grotto was so enthralling, from the lush environment to the wee critters piddling around, all wrapped up with the soundtrack instilling a sense of whimsy. Then on the total polar opposite side of the spectrum is Greymore, an area that at first I wasn't a fan of. The muted color palette, the downtrodden music, everything about it was depressing. However, that's so clearly the point of it, and to be able to craft such an experience is tippable. If it came down to it, I could go on about the sheer amount of passion that has been baked into every single location of Farland, which is undoubtedly one of the strongest aspects of this experience. Everything is meant to be crawled through, to find every detail and leave no stone unturned. I think it's just too bad that that isn't how I typically enjoy many games, and perhaps may be a big reason as to why I can never get into the Metroidvania genre as a whole. Perhaps my brain synapses have been fried over the years with a constant dose of Call of Duty, Sonic the Hedgehog, then also sprinkle in an unmedicated ADHD diagnosis, and I find myself not allowing my brain to process puzzles very well. And I'm talking about actual real-life puzzles too, taking the time to individually scour the entire map and find the one piece that's missing. You see, there's this door on the map of the Cogwork Core that I completely passed over while trying to find a way to reach the top of the area for one of the trifold song melodies. I had been to this general location earlier and grabbed a mask shard, and because of that my brain saw it fit to classify that area as explored. Eventually I grew tired and looked up where I need to go, and it's like, well, here's this one single thing you missed. It's a tiny detail on this otherwise giant map, and perhaps I should take the time to only think about the zone that I'm in, but throughout Silksong, areas will connect with each other, so I thought that in order to reach the top of the Cogwork Core, I would need to find an area higher up, such as the Memoriam, to lead me through. And to be honest, my reliance on a guide didn't stop there. I used one to find all the health upgrades throughout Acts 1 and 2. I didn't find searching for and finding them on my own to be gratifying, as, especially in this game, they never felt like they were something optional to obtain but mandatory for survival. I think the use of a guide is what also turned Biowater into one of my favorite areas of Silksong, leaving me to focus on the phenomenal OST and hum along with it, and make my way through the platforming challenges. And I even had an item that made it so I didn't have to deal with a defect of falling into the sludge that would have made it so I couldn't bind and restore my health. And instead of having to make this otherwise ridiculous run back, there was a hidden bench nearby as well, cutting it in half. Well, I think I made it far enough without bringing up the elephant in the room, so let's finally start digging into one of the biggest talking points that surrounded the release window: the difficulty. Honestly, at first I thought it was a massive prank that I wasn't in on. Like, the real difficulty was how long the wait for the game was, or something like that. I don't know, I'm just not seeing it. Sure, these platforming sections can be a bit tricky, but you reset close enough to do them again, and they don't last for too long, and it's pretty easy to get in a flow for them. Like, seriously, I'm a few hours in, and sure, I've died a couple times, but I don't really... Oh. The bosses themselves are one of the biggest draws in Silksong, and there's quite a few of these that are intimidating based off sheer size, and another set being an amazing spectacle. Some of my personal favorites ended up being the 4th Chorus, Trabio, and Grandmother Silk herself. Trabio being what I thought more of these bosses would be, a one-on-one with well-telegraphed attacks to compensate for how quick and damaging some of them can be, and oh my god. The Grandmother Silk boss fight? Man, I wish this was what a lot more of the game entailed. An all-around fantastic battle. 10 out of 10, no notes. The run back increasing the tension as you climb higher, with the heartbeat of the Silk thumping louder as you approach. The shrill shriek of the Grandmother Silk along with the intense orchestral soundtrack. Not doing contact damage. Ugh. When Team Cherry wants to make a dynamic set piece, they may be able to do it better than anyone I've ever seen do it. But then... some of the others are such big turnoffs that it makes me never want to play this game again. The ones where every single time I was starting to enjoy myself, they would come along and kill my enjoyment. Oh, I'm looking at you, Morwing. The first roadblock I really came across. Fast projectiles that can go high or low, even when you pogo them, they'll jump up and deal damage, and for some reason it's not even 1 mask, but 2? I still only have 5 hits to take, and now we're dropping it to 3? Since he was the first boss that took me a while to beat, I'll admit, it was at least gratifying to beat it combined with a massive IRL pop-off. But as I fought more and more that took a while to beat, it slowly started to taper off to where it was eventually... Alright, I get it! And that goes doubly, no, triply so for the fights that are nothing but gauntlets of enemies with no end in sight. The Coral Towers was what officially broke me. Even after all of the nonsense that this game has thrown my way so far, I was around 30 hours in, and I just didn't have it in me to care anymore. There was still a part of me beforehand that thought I could replay the game after beating it and seeing if it's a cozier run through the second time around, but this was it. This is the point that will constantly sit in the back of my mind as a warning sign to never reinstall this. Back to back to back gauntlets of enemies chock full of some of the most annoying ones to deal with these ones that teleport across the screen to escape you, these 3 flying bugs that always spawn in multiples that spam attacks and do double damage, the 2 that have projectiles that'll bounce off the walls multiple times, and after you make it through 3 gauntlets in a row, you have to fight a 4th one before even fighting the boss himself. Sure, there's a thing you can knock down after the 3rd fight to skip to the 4th, but I seriously don't think it would have been too much to ask for from one to be after each of these. I despise this place, which sucks so much because I find it to be one of the most visually pleasing areas in the game. Then when I finally get to Carmelita, I was tired and just wanted to be done. Easily my biggest gripe with all of the boss fights in this game is that I have no idea how much damage I'm doing to them. Not even so much as seeing the enemy itself being worn down. They'll get these stagger states every so often, but how many of those they get beats me. If there were a health bar that showed me either how close or far off I was, I could at least see myself making progress on each attempt. Or I could take the fact that I'm not anywhere close and use that as a sign to reorganize my strategy with the crest/tools the game provides. But Silksong wants to see you struggle so much that it can't even grant you the opportunity to make fun of you for being one hit away. This is the real reason the game took forever. Team Cherry said they were having so much fun developing this game, but really they were just researching ways to torment the player at every moment. It was official. I didn't care anymore. Screw this. I'm looking up a build that lets me cheese the game, and cheese the game I did. I'm talking about the Architect Crest. It lets you rock 3 red tools so you can spam them constantly, and some of these like the tacks and the cogflies will eat enemies alive. Then using the ability of the Architect Crest to craft your tools mid-boss fight to effectively let you have an infinite amount of them to have at your disposal. Crafting them can take a massive amount of shards, which can require some grinding, but just throw on a podcast for 30 minutes and relax. And then also maxing out the damage my needle does, so anytime I do decide to engage, I'm actually doing something to the enemy. And don't forget the plasmium files that you can use to get a regenerating health pool. Man, these were great. I will stall in the air for as long as I need to, as long as I can get my health back, which is easy enough to do in the final boss. The attack's Lost Place will throw it, you typically can't reach her in the air, except for this one that spawns a few cannons that auto-track, and after finally beating her, I was just glad to be done with it all. Perhaps I could have enjoyed the experience more, but after 40 hours, I still only had a 63% completion percentage. The amount of content you are getting for only $20 is unquestionable, and it is very much a breath of fresh air in the current climate of a rising cost for games and battle passes. But if you never touched the original Hollow Knight, I think it's for the best if you were to pick that one up first. I'm sure the story will make more sense for you, which is enough of a reason to play it first, but also I've been reading that it is easier for at least the main game. Not that it's easy, mind you, but it's probably a worthwhile warm-up before hopping into the even harder game that is Silksong. And I would say that the biggest reason is that the original Hollow Knight is going for $15 with all the DLCs. So you can take your time with that, and then maybe by then we'll already be seeing DLC for Silksong 2. And with the monumental success it had, I'm sure it's only a matter of time. If anyone else who decided to jump straight into Silksong without ever playing the original got this far, please let me know. What did you think of this game? I would be genuinely interested to see your takes on the things that I had taken issues with, to see if you agree or if those were things you actually enjoyed about the game. Subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day.